My wife casually announced she was going to be a surrogate for her ex-boyfriend. She just expected me to accept it, to just support her decision, as if she'd just decided to paint the guest room. She looked at me, smiling, waiting for applause. So I looked her right in the eye and said, "Wow, Chloe, how incredibly generous of you." Then I quietly filed for divorce. I froze all our assets, and I had her removed from my health insurance. Her panicked attorney called me exactly 2 hours after the embryo implantation, right when she woke up to reality. You think you know someone. This story is unbelievable, and you are going to want to hear every single detail of how it all went down. Welcome to Inspiration Seeker. Before we dig in, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell. And let me know in the comments, what would you have done in my position? Alright, let's start at the beginning. From the outside, we had the perfect life. We lived in Tarrytown, one of those quiet, old-money neighborhoods in Austin where the trees are older than the state. Our house was a sleek, modern build, all glass, white stone, and sharp angles, a monument to success. It was the kind of place that gets featured in architecture magazines. And I'm the kind of guy who builds monuments. My name is Mark. I'm a VP of engineering at a major tech firm downtown. My entire life is built on logic. I write code. I manage systems. I anticipate problems and I build fail-safes. My world operates on cause and effect. If A happens, B must follow. I don't like surprises. I plan. And then there was Chloe, my wife of 7 years. Chloe works in non-profit fundraising. She lives and breathes emotion. Where I build systems, she feels everything. She's impulsive, driven by whichever feeling is strongest in the moment. When we first met, I thought her spontaneity was a perfect balance to my structure. I thought her passion was refreshing. But after 7 years, that passion had started to look a lot like recklessness. Her empathy felt poorly aimed, scattered to everyone except, it seemed, her own husband. There was a crack forming right down the middle of our perfect modern house. And it had been growing for 24 months. We'd been trying for a child. 2 years of clinical appointments, temperature charts, scheduled intimacy, and the quiet, crushing disappointment that arrived like clockwork every month. It puts a strain on a marriage. It creates a silence, a cold, empty space between two people. And into that empty space, an old ghost decided to walk right in. About a month ago, she mentioned it. Oh, guess who I ran into? Liam. Liam. Her college ex. The charismatic, struggling musician. The one who got away. Or more accurately, the one who couldn't pay his rent. A week later, it was, Liam and I are grabbing coffee. Just to catch up. I told her, flat out, that it made me uncomfortable. She just laughed. That breezy, dismissive laugh. Oh, Mark. Don't be so serious. It's Liam. He's married now. It's completely, totally platonic. It's nothing. I should have known then. In my marriage, it's nothing was always the beginning of everything. It was a Sunday. One of those perfect Austin mornings in late spring, before the heat becomes a physical weight. The sky was a sharp, clear blue. We were on the patio, back when the patio was still ours. The smell of fresh ground coffee and the expensive artisanal jam Chloe liked was in the air. It was the very picture of domestic peace. I was reading a financial report on my tablet. Chloe was scrolling through her phone, smiling at something. I assumed it was a donor email or a message from her sister. So, I have some really exciting news, she said, putting her phone face down on the table. I looked up, still half-focused on my report. Yeah. Did you land that big corporate sponsor? Oh no, it's more personal. And it's amazing. She was beaming. It was that specific self-congratulatory smile she got when she'd done something she considered profoundly good. You know, I've been talking with Liam a bit, right? My focus sharpened. Right. The platonic coffee. Well, yes. And we were talking about their struggles. You know, with infertility. She leaned forward, her eyes bright. Mark, his wife. She can't carry a baby. They've tried everything. It's not possible for her. They're devastated. I put the tablet down. I knew where this was going. Not all the way, not to the insane conclusion she'd reached, but I felt the track shifting beneath us. That's tough, Chloe. But that's not really I volunteered. She said it so simply, so casually, as if she'd just volunteered to organize a bake sale. The words hung in the air between us, over the remnants of our brunch. I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline. I'm sorry, I said, my voice perfectly level. You what? I volunteered to be their surrogate, she said again, a little louder, as if I hadn't heard. I'm going to carry their baby for them. Isn't that incredible? I can finally use my body to give someone the one gift they can't have. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was a physical sensation, a cold rush downward. All the air left my lungs. She hadn't asked me. She hadn't discussed it. She had decided. She was going to use her body, the same body we'd been desperately, painfully trying to have our own child with, to have a baby for her ex-boyfriend. She saw the look on my face, and her smile finally faltered. Just a little. What? She said, her tone shifting from excited to defensive. It's my body, Mark. It's my decision. And they're my friends. They need me. I just assumed you. You know, I assumed you'd support me doing something so generous. The assumption. That was it. The assumption that my opinion, my feelings, my role in our marriage was irrelevant. That I was just a supporting character in the story she was writing for herself. I felt something in my chest go cold. Colder than the patio stone. The engineer in my brain took over. The planner. The one who builds fail-safes. A has happened. Now B must follow. She smiled. She actually smiled relieved, as if she'd just navigated a tricky bit of conversation and come out clean. I knew you'd understand, Mark. I knew you'd see how important this is. She reached across the table to put her hand on mine. I looked at her hand. Then I looked at her face. The woman I'd loved for 7 years. The woman I'd been trying to build a family with. And I felt nothing. It wasn't a slow fade. It was a switch. A circuit breaker flipping. The person I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw me as an obstacle to be managed, with a bright smile. This wasn't a partnership. It was a performance. And she had just handed me the final script. I pulled my hand back, not quickly, just deliberately, and I stood up. The metal legs of the chair scraped softly on the stone patio. I have to take a call, I said. My voice was monotone, completely flat. She frowned. A call? Now. It's Sunday. It's an emergency, I replied, turning toward the house. And that was the absolute unvarnished truth. It was just my emergency, not hers. I slid the heavy glass door shut behind me. The thud was so final. I walked past the kitchen, past our beautiful open-plan living room. I didn't look at the photos of us on the shelf. I walked straight to the end of the hall, to my home office. I stepped inside, closed the solid core oak door, and I turned the deadbolt. A heavy click echoed in the quiet room. I sat at my desk. My heart was pounding, but my hands were perfectly steady. The engineer in my brain was back in control. The betrayal was a white-hot engine, but my mind was the cold, logical machine it was driving. A has happened. B must follow. Failsafe engaged. I didn't call a divorce lawyer. I didn't look up family law. I had a lawyer. I pulled up my contacts and pressed a single name. Dr. Harrison. Harrison isn't the kind of lawyer you call when you get a speeding ticket. He's the man I keep on a 6-figure retainer for my business. He's a shark. He's a corporate raider in a $3,000 suit, the man you hire to protect intellectual property and dismantle competitors. He's not nice. He's a weapon. He picked up on the second ring. Mark, he grunted. This is a surprise. I trust your company isn't on fire. My marriage is, I said, my voice low and clear. I need you to execute my catastrophic failure protocol. Effective immediately. There was a half-second of silence. I'd set this up years ago, a what-if scenario to protect my company shares and premarital assets. I never, ever thought I'd use it. Go on, Harrison said. I could hear the faint sound of him typing. My wife has just informed me she is volunteering as a surrogate. For her ex-boyfriend. The procedure is apparently this week. She has entered into this agreement, this liability, without my knowledge or consent. Harrison didn't ask how I felt. He didn't offer condolences. He let out a low whistle. Oh, that's not just a breach, Mark. That's a material endangerment of community assets. That's beautiful. What are your instructions? File, I said. File for divorce. Today. I want an emergency petition to freeze every joint asset, checking and savings, on the grounds of that reckless endangerment. I want it all locked. Now. And the house. Mine. Premarital. Lock her out. Understood, Harrison said. The typing became faster. Consider it done. The bomb is on its way. I hung up. I looked at my mouse. And I made the first click. The next 48 hours were not a divorce. They were an extraction. A systematic, clinical, and total execution of the plan I'd been warned was too aggressive. You see, when I sold my first startup, 5 years before I even met Chloe, I had Harrison draft a postnuptial agreement. It was a standard precaution for any founder in a community property state like Texas. When I presented it to Chloe after we got married, she just laughed. She barely even read it. She called it unromantic and lawyer talk. I remember her exact words. Mark, I'm not marrying you for your money. I don't care about this stuff. She signed it on the hood of her car outside a coffee shop. She was careless. But I'm not. I'm a man who builds fail-safes. I plan for floods. I plan for fires. I plan for server crashes. And I plan for catastrophic breaches of trust. While Chloe was blissfully texting Liam and his wife, planning the nursery, Dr. Harrison was filing the petition. It wasn't a soft, irreconcilable differences filing. It was a legal broadside. Harrison's argument was brilliant in its absolute coldness. It wasn't about my feelings. It wasn't about her ex. It was about imminent and reckless financial endangerment. He argued, quite correctly, that my wife was unilaterally and covertly entering into a binding medical contract. A contract that carried enormous liability. A high-risk pregnancy, complications during birth, an extended stay in the neonatal ICU. We're talking about a debt that could easily soar into the high 6, even 7 figures. And she was strapping this potential financial time bomb to our marital estate, to my assets, without my knowledge or consent. All to benefit a third party. Her ex. A Texas judge, especially one who understands business, doesn't like that. They don't like recklessness. By 9 a.m. Monday morning, we had the emergency court order. The freeze was on. Every joint checking account. Every shared savings account we'd been building for our future, for our baby. Every investment portfolio. All of it. Frozen solid. Locked. Inaccessible. While Harrison was dropping that legal bomb, I was making my own moves. I executed the clauses in that post-nup she never read. I transferred every penny of my premarital money, all my company shares, all my private holdings, into new, individual accounts that she didn't even know existed. In the span of a single business morning, I had built a financial firewall so total, so absolute, that not a single penny could cross from my side to hers. The legal separation was filed. The financial separation was complete. But I still had one last cord to cut. The most important one of all. The financial accounts were frozen. The legal petition was filed. But that was all just money. It was abstract. Numbers on a screen. To stop this, I had to make the consequences immediate. I had to make them physical. I was still in my home office. The house was dead quiet. I assume Chloe had left, probably to meet with Liam or go to a preliminary doctor's appointment. She hadn't even tried the locked office door. I opened a new tab in my browser and logged into my company's benefits portal. My company. My job. The place that paid for the Tarrytown house. The place that paid for the artisanal jam. The place that provided the platinum-level PPO health insurance that covered both of us. It was the best plan money could buy. It covered everything. And I knew that high-end fertility clinic in Westlake Hills would have already run her insurance. They would have seen that platinum PPO and gotten a pre-authorization for the embryo transfer. They'd see a green light. They'd be expecting an easy multi-thousand-dollar payday. They were about to be very, very disappointed. Under managed dependents, there was her name, Chloe Evans. Next to it was a small link, initiate a qualifying life event. I clicked it. A drop-down menu appeared. Marriage. Birth of a child. Death. And there it was. Divorce/legal separation. I selected it. The system, as logical and unfeeling as I am, simply asked for the filing date. I typed in yesterday's date. A new screen loaded. Please select the dependents to be removed from your plan. Her name was there, with a small checkbox next to it. I thought for just a second about the 2 years we'd spent trying. All the copays for her fertility specialists, all the prescriptions. All paid for by this very plan. The plan I was now using to protect myself from the consequences of her using that same fertility. For him. The irony was bitter. I didn't hesitate. I clicked the box. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to remove Chloe Evans from your coverage? I clicked Confirm. The page refreshed. Her name was gone. Just like that. In the cold blue light of the monitor, she was erased. I knew the system's protocol. An automated notification would now be sent to her personal email address. Not from me. From the benefits administrator. It would be a dry corporate email with the subject line, Notice of change in health insurance coverage and information regarding COBRA. It would be packed with legal jargon, acronyms, and deadlines. It was the kind of email Chloe always ignored. She'd see the subject, assume it was administrative spam, and delete it without reading. She'd walk into that clinic tomorrow morning, blissfully unaware that she was, for the first time in her adult life, completely and totally uninsured. The trap wasn't just set. The timer was now counting down. The next morning, she went to the clinic. It wasn't just any clinic. This was in Westlake Hills. This is where the wives of tech billionaires and oil barons go. It's a gleaming palace of marble, quiet waterfalls, and soft lighting, designed to make you feel like you're at a 5-star spa, not a medical facility. It's a place that costs a lot of money. And Chloe walked in like she owned it. I know exactly what she was doing because she was posting about it. Not publicly, of course. But she was in a group chat with Liam and his wife. She was in the paper gown on the table, taking smiling selfies. The thumbs up. Here we go. So excited for you guys. Messages. She was the star of her own movie. The hero. And as she was lying there, waiting for the doctor, her phone was vibrating on the side table. It was the emails. The notice of petition for dissolution of marriage from Harrison's office. The notice of change in health insurance coverage from my benefits administrator. I'm sure she saw the subject lines. I'm sure she just swiped them away. Annoying. Work stuff. I'll deal with it later. Why wouldn't she? In her world, the boring administrative details just got handled. The bills just got paid. That was my job. My part of the machinery. She just had to show up and feel things. The doctor came in. A man with a warm, expensive smile. They performed the procedure. It was quick. Clinical. A simple, biological transaction. They transferred Liam's, her ex-boyfriend's, embryo into my wife's body. A few minutes later it was done. A textbook success. They probably called it. They moved her to a private recovery room. One with plush chairs and a view of the hills. She was lying there, probably with her hand on her abdomen, feeling triumphant. Noble. She'd done it. She had given the ultimate gift. She was a savior. She was high on her own generosity. She was probably already imagining the grateful tears from Liam and his wife, the baby shower, the endless praise she'd receive for her selfless act. She had no idea. She had no idea that while she was playing hero, I had already dismantled the entire stage. She was lying in a recovery room that cost about $2,000 an hour. And the clock, for the very first time in her life, was her problem. The bill was coming due. She was in that recovery room for about 30 minutes. The mild sedation was wearing off, replaced by that I did a good thing glow. She was probably thirsty. She probably wanted a celebratory latte from the gourmet coffee cart I'm sure they have in the lobby. She reached for her phone, not just to text, but to use Apple Pay. It's the little things that break first. The first transaction. Declined. I can picture the look on her face. Not panic. Not yet. Just annoyance. That little impatient huff. Ugh, stupid thing. She'd try again. Declined. Then she'd try her debit card. The joint one. The one tied to our main checking account. The account I funded. The account from which the mortgage and the car payments and her non-profit gala dresses were all automatically paid. Card declined. Contact your financial institution. Now, the annoyance would curdle. That little flicker of cold. That's not supposed to happen. That never happens. Her hands would be a little clumsy as she fumbled to open her banking app. She'd log in, expecting to see the comfortable, six-figure balance we always kept. Instead, she'd see two words, printed in stark, digital red, right next to a number she hadn't seen since she was in college. Account status. Frozen available balance. $0. I imagine she'd go very, very still. The selfless glow would be gone, snuffed out like a candle. I picture her reading the words over and over. Frozen. Frozen. It wouldn't compute. This is a mistake, she'd whisper to the empty, expensive room. It's a glitch. A hack. And that's when she'd remember. The emails. The ones she swiped away while she was taking selfies in the paper gown. Her fingers would be shaking now. She'd scroll, past the congrats. Texts, past the you're an angel. Messages from Liam. There, in her inbox, lined up like soldiers, was the new reality. Subject, notice of petition for dissolution of marriage subject. Notice of emergency asset freeze. Case hashtag 349, be subject. Notice of change in health insurance coverage, Cobra. She'd click the insurance one first. The most immediate. Your coverage under policy has been terminated. Effective 11:59 p.m. yesterday. She'd click the legal one. Petitioner, Mark T. Evans. Respondent, Chloe R. Evans. Petitioner, me. I had filed first. The realization would hit her like a physical blow. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. This was my plan. The boring, logical, administrative husband she'd ignored had just dismantled her entire life while she was busy playing hero. She was in a $2,000 an hour recovery room with an 4 in her arm, and she had no money. She had no house. And as of midnight last night, she had no insurance. She was a patient, an uninsured patient, and the bill was on its way. Just as the full, crushing weight of that reality was settling on her, there was a polite, firm knock on the recovery room door. It wasn't a nurse. It was a woman in a crisp gray business suit, holding a tablet. The clinic's billing manager. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Evans," she said, her voice perfectly pleasant. "My name is Sarah. I just need to clear up a small issue with your file." I'm sure Chloe just nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with panic. Liam and his wife, who had presumably been called in to celebrate, were just standing there, confused. "It seems," the manager continued, looking at her tablet, "there's a discrepancy with your insurance. We ran it for pre-authorization last week, and it was approved. But when we ran it post-procedure, it was declined." No, Chloe stammered, shaking her head. "That's impossible. It's a mistake. Run it again." It's a platinum PPO. It's fine. The manager's fake smile faded. Ma'am, we did run it again. And we called the provider directly. The policy was terminated by the primary holder, effective 11:59 p.m. last night. Your pre-authorization is void. You are uninsured. A terrible, heavy silence filled the expensive room. Liam and his wife just stared. So, the manager said, her voice all business now, we will need to settle the account for today's services. The procedure, the lab work, the anesthesiologist, and the recovery suite. The total comes to $42,500. We accept all major credit cards, or a cashier's check. $42,000. Chloe's world had just collapsed to the size of that number. I can just see Liam, the charismatic musician, suddenly finding the ceiling tiles fascinating. He didn't have 42 cents, let alone 42 grand. Chloe didn't scream. She didn't cry. She did what she always does when her emotions get too big. She tried to make someone else fix it. She called her lawyer, a small-time family attorney. My phone rang about 20 minutes later. I was in a suite at the Four Seasons downtown, looking out over the river. I let it ring twice. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. Mark. Mark Evans. The voice was high-pitched, flustered. This is Bill Stevenson. I'm Chloe Evans' attorney. What did you do? What the hell did you do? He was yelling. Unprofessional. He was out of his depth. Mr. Stevenson, I said calmly, I have no idea what you're talking about. All my communications are going through my counsel, Dr. Harrison. Don't give me that, he sputtered. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You cut off her health insurance. You can't do that. I can, I said. It's a qualifying life event. I filed for divorce. She. Mark, she just had an embryo implanted. She's pregnant. You cut off her insurance while she was on the table. You can't just abandon her like this. The sheer, unadulterated nerve. It was time to end this. I let the lawyer's words hang in the air for a moment. You can't just abandon her. The accusation was so absurd, so completely backward, that I almost laughed. Abandon her? I finally said, my voice as cold and clear as the glass in my hand. Mr. Stevenson, let's be very precise here. I didn't do this. She did. What are you talking about? He stammered. You're the one who filed. You're the one who cut the insurance. I am the one who reacted, I corrected him. Your client, my wife, chose to unilaterally enter into a high-risk medical procedure, using her body to have a child for another man. Her ex-boyfriend, no less. She did this without my consent, without my knowledge, and in doing so, she exposed our community assets to catastrophic financial risk. She made a choice. She detonated a bomb in the middle of our marriage and our finances. I am simply managing the blast radius. The line was silent. The lawyer was, for once, speechless. He knew I was right. He knew, in the cold language of the law, she didn't have a leg to stand on. But, she's at the clinic right now, he finally managed, trying a different tactic. She's pregnant. She needs medical care. Who is going to pay for that, Mark? Who pays for the next 9 months? This was it. The core of it all. The real reason for the panic. Not her health, not her feelings. The money. That, I said, taking a sip of water, is an excellent question. And it's not my problem. What do you mean, not your problem? She's your wife. She was my wife, I said. As of 9 a.m. yesterday, she is the respondent in a divorce petition. She made a generous decision about her body, remember? Those were her words. It's my body, Mark. It's my decision. And I agree. It is. And with her decision come her consequences. I walked over to the window, looking down at the city. My city. Her medical bills are now her own. And since she is generously carrying his baby, I continued, I suggest she ask him for the money. Or his wife. Or maybe her lawyer. It's their child, their project, their liability. My involvement in this generous arrangement is officially over. You can't be serious. The lawyer whispered. I have never been more serious in my life, I said. Tell Chloe not to come home. The locks have been changed. The security codes are new. She can arrange with Dr. Harrison to retrieve her personal belongings at a later date. Goodbye, Mr. Stevenson. I didn't slam the phone down. I didn't have to. I just pressed the end call button. A simple digital click. The second final click. The connection was severed. All of them. The legal, the financial, the medical, the emotional. It was done. She was now, in every way that mattered, on her own. Locked out of her home, with no money, no insurance, and a $42,500 bill sitting in her lap. And she was carrying his child. I wasn't in that room. I didn't need to be. I had designed the system, I had tested the failsafe. I didn't need to watch the crash. But I can picture it. I can see it all with perfect clinical clarity. Chloe, sitting on the edge of the recovery bed. The paper gown crinkling. The $42,500 bill sitting on the side table like a death sentence. That incredible gift she was so proud of? It wasn't a gift anymore. It was a debt. It was a catastrophic, life-altering, uninsured liability. And it was all hers. And where were her grateful friends? Where was Liam, the man she had just sacrificed her entire life for? I can guarantee you they weren't in the room with her. They were out in the hallway. The billing manager, her job done, had left them alone to discuss their payment options. The celebration was over. The gratitude had vanished, replaced by the sour metallic taste of panic. I can just hear the hushed, frantic argument. Liam, the broke musician, looking at his wife. What do you mean your card was declined? I don't have that kind of limit. I thought you were going to handle the medical. She's your friend, Liam. You got us into this. Well, it's your baby. This was your idea. It was her offer. And Chloe, just sitting there, listening, the sound of her new family tearing itself apart before the first trimester had even begun. This was the reality. The cold, hard, fluorescent-lit reality that she had been shielded from for 7 years. She finally understood. She finally saw that her noble decision wasn't noble at all. It was selfish. It wasn't an act of independence. It was an act of profound, arrogant dependence. It was a decision she could only make because she had a safety net. A boring husband who managed the money. A platinum insurance plan she didn't pay for. A perfect house she didn't own. She hadn't just treated me like a husband. She had treated me like infrastructure. Like a power grid. A utility. Something she could just plug into and draw from, assuming the lights would always stay on. Well, the power was out. The accounts were frozen. The house was locked. She had made her choice. She wanted to build a family for her ex-boyfriend. And in the process, she had just permanently destroyed her own. She was left alone in a cold room, with nothing but the consequences of her own generosity. A perfect, logical cause and effect. A happens. B follows. End of file.